Okay, so you know how sometimes you pick up like a brochure or even something as simple as a takeout menu,
Right.
and it's like weirdly satisfying how everything's lined up perfectly?
Yeah.
We're gonna be like diving into the world of the people behind the scenes who make that happen. Pre-press technicians.
It's funny how often we interact with the work of pre-press technicians without even realizing it.
Total.
Like, it's so easy to take for granted that what we see on our screens can actually be, like, transferred to a physical printed piece.
It's true. So it's not just hitting print like we all do.
Right.
In fact, the stuff we read called it formatting, composing. They even used the word troubleshooting at one point.
It's a lot more technical than people realize. You're essentially taking the vision of a designer, which is often like digital,
Right.
and you're making sure that it can be printed in a way that's, accurate, high quality. It's a blend of having these really specific technical skills and artistic precision.
So they're dealing with the printing presses too, those huge machines.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about electronically processing images, making sure the layout is perfectly aligned. They even handle quality control on the printing presses themselves.
Wow. That's a lot more than I imagined. So I'm guessing like those color calibration charts, giant rolls of paper, that's all part of their world.
Exactly. And this is where those pros and cons lists we saw, especially from that RoleCatcher guide, get interesting. On one hand, you have those tasks that can get repetitive, like making sure the colors stay consistent on a huge print run. That requires crazy attention to detail.
I can see that.
But then on the other hand, you have the problem-solving aspect. Like, what happens when a press malfunctions? And believe me, it happens.
Oh.
Machines, right?
They have a mind of their own.
Exactly. So suddenly you need those creative thinking skills to figure out what's wrong, how to fix it, and keep everything on track.
So you've got to be comfortable with the tech stuff, but also have that artist sense of when something's not quite right.
You've got it. It's a pretty unique combination, and honestly, that's what makes this career path so fascinating to explore.
So speaking of that unique combo, what does it actually take to be a press technician? Is this a job for like coding wizards who also happen to have an eye for design?
That's a really common misconception. While being tech savvy definitely helps, it's less about hardcore coding and more about knowing how to use the software that's specific to the printing industry.
Okay, so what are we talking about here?
Think Adobe Creative Suite, InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, those big ones. You're not building the software from scratch, but you're using it as your toolbox to create these like perfect, flawless printed pieces.
So it's like, I don't need to know how to build a sewing machine to be a tailor, but I do need to know how to use one really well to get the results I want.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. And actually, while we're on the topic of technology, it's kind of mind-blowing how much it's changed the game in pre-press. Like, one of sources mentioned that software like InDesign completely revolutionized layout design. We're talking like drastically cutting down production time, but it's not like you can just feed a design into a computer and poof, it's ready to go, right?
That's what I was wondering. There's still that human element involved.
100%. And that's what all of our sources really emphasize, that human eye is irreplaceable. Technology can speed up those more repetitive tasks, but it's still the pre-press technician who catches those tiny inconsistencies, like a color discrepancy that's ever so slightly off, or a font that's not quite the right size. That's the kind of attention to detail that sets a truly skilled technician apart.
So it's a blend of those hard skills, the software, the processes, and those soft skills we hear so much about, like working under pressure, right?
Yeah.
Because printing deadlines are notoriously tight.
Oh, tell me about it. And we can't forget about communication, which is huge in this role. The RoleCatcher guide really drove this point home. Prepress technicians are in constant communication with everyone. Graphic designers, printing press operators, sometimes even sales reps and clients. So you're very much part of a team, even when you're deep in the technical weeds on your own.
That actually makes me think about like the career trajectory itself.
Yeah.
Let's say you've got those skills nailed down, you've gotten your foot in the door as a pre-press technician. What's next? Do you just do the same thing for years and years?
Not at all. And that's something I found really encouraging in our research. The RoleCatcher guide actually lays out a pretty clear progression. You start at an entry level, then you move up to junior, then mid-level, all the way up to senior pre-press technician.
Oh, so there's a ladder to climb. But it's not just about putting in the time, is it?
You got it. Our sources all emphasize that this is one of those fields where you really have to be proactive about your own professional development. So that means taking initiative to learn new software, mastering new techniques as they emerge, and always, always, always building up that portfolio to showcase your skills.
Right. Show, don't tell. That showcasing your capabilities section from our research was super helpful for that, by the way.
Absolutely. And then there's the networking aspect. Remember, you're not just working with computers here, you're part of this whole ecosystem of printing professionals, attending industry events, joining relevant associations, even just like connecting with people on LinkedIn. All of that can make a difference in the long run.
Right. It's like any creative field, really. The more people who know your work and what you're capable of, the more opportunities come your way. So you're not just a technician, you're building a whole career.
Exactly. And that really came through in those example profiles we looked at in our research. Like, the senior Prepress technician isn't just some master of formatting. They're often overseeing entire departments, managing budgets, even like staying ahead of the curve on all those technological advancements we talked about.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So there's some real leadership potential down the line. Like we went from pixel perfect details to big picture strategy pretty quickly there. But okay, all this talk about technology changing the game, it does make me wonder, is this a career that's like going to be taken over by robots someday?
That is the million-dollar question, right? And it's interesting because the sources we looked at actually offer clues pointing in both directions.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this. But before we get to that final thought-provoking question, let's bring it all home for our listeners.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of ground here, day-to-day tasks, skills needed, the potential career path. What's standing out to you as like the biggest takeaway from all this?
Honestly, for me, it's that this isn't just some, abstract job description. It's like a practical roadmap. Whether you're just starting out or thinking about switching careers, there are concrete steps you can take, like right now, to get started.
Those getting started and interview prep sections from the research were seriously helpful, by the way.
Totally. Like, even if you don't have all the software skills yet, there's so much you can do. Seeking out internships, taking online courses, building up a portfolio, it all adds up. And then when it comes to the interview itself, being able to talk about your knowledge of the software, like color management or different printing processes, that's what makes you stand out.
It's about showing that passion. Yeah. The genuine interest. You can't fake that.
100%. Because at the end of the day, it's that enthusiasm, that drive to keep learning and growing that separates a good pre-press technician from a truly great one.
So true. Okay, but we can't wrap up this deep dive without addressing the elephant in the room, or maybe we should say the robot in the room. You mentioned earlier that technology could be both a threat and an opportunity for pre-press technicians.
Yeah, it's like the paradox of progress, right? On the one hand, as automation keeps advancing, it is natural to wonder if some of those more repetitive tasks we talked about, like maybe those will eventually be done by machines.
Which, could actually be a good thing in the long run, right? Because then it frees up those human pre-press technicians to focus on more of the complex creative work.
Exactly. And that leads us to the other side of the coin, which is that as technology continues to, reshape the printing industry, the demand for highly skilled pre-press technicians, people who can really adapt and evolve, who understand both the art and the science behind what they do, that demand is only going to increase.
So begs the question, is this a career path that's fading away? Or is it one where human expertise actually becomes even more valuable because of technology? That's something for you, dear listener, to ponder.
Exactly. Do your research, talk to people in the industry, and see where you land. Because the future's printing might just depend on it.